You're tuned in to the TVL Rundown, a comprehensive weekly look at the athletics inside the Twin Valley League. The TVL Rundown is a service of B&D Buildings in Axtell and the Citizens National Bank in Greenleaf.
B&D Buildings of Axtell specializes in post-frame buildings. Give them a call for stud-frame buildings with complete concrete and electrical work included. It's one call to get the job done. B&D Buildings, specializing in post-frame building construction, plus repairs and more. Always free estimates. Give them a call. B&D Buildings of Axtell, 785-294-0147. B&D Buildings at 785-294-0147.
Another reason to make the Citizens National Bank your bank. With the century of experience, you know you can count on us for convenient banking and personal service for people you know and trust. With extended hours and online banking for all your financial needs. Another reason to make the Citizens National Bank your bank.
Welcome into the TVL Rundown. Max Blaske of KNDY Radio and Jeff Wurtz of the TVL Spotlight with you. Jeff, we were talking beforehand. It is just a busy week in the TVL. We're going to start with some Saturday action. Twin Valley League Volleyball League Meet is happening at Blue Valley on Saturday.
And what an exciting time that is. You know, you get to see these teams play once or twice each week. You don't usually get them all in the same place, and when you get them all in the same place, boy, oh boy, Blue Valley is in for a treat coming up on Saturday.
As always, we're chatting here on Wednesday, and last night there was a all-important try versus Centralia Valley Heights in Hanover. We'll have a recap of that score tomorrow on KNDY, Jeff, but as we prepare for the TVL tournament this weekend, who are you looking at to make some noise in this tournament?
I think it is a wide-open field for about 5 to 6 to 7 teams, and I'm not kidding them. I would go as far as 7 deep that can make a run. You know what it is in volleyball. Any team that just gets momentum, just gets something going, can pull an upset at any time. If I'm one of those top 3 or 4 teams, I'm nervous. And maybe nervous isn't the right word, because we know they're going to be prepared, but they better be prepared to the max coming into Saturday. They better be focused. I have seen all of these teams play. The focus that Hanover, Centralia, Valley Heights, even the Lynn Bulldogs, the focus is just straightforward. It is never get distracted. It is never, let's just play over here a little bit. It's straightforward, and I always use the term cinema, because that's exactly what it's going to be. It's going to be cinema coming up on Saturday.
Well, and a few teams you mentioned there, just looking at season records. The Lynn Bulldogs, I think, are up and coming. You look at a Clifton Clyde Eagles team that has experience back this year. Donovan West, the same too as well. Even, I think, a Washington County team that has some athletes but maybe hasn't played up to potential. Like you mentioned, you get into a tournament setting, I think anything's possible for any of these teams. And I don't know, Jeff, do you know what time this is all kicking off down there on Saturday?
They will be starting, I believe, at 9 a.m.
So get on down there, 9 a.m., Blue Valley again, league meet coming up. And then volleyball season turns right around after the Twin Valley League regionals get started the following Monday, Tuesday on the 21st, 22nd, if I'm not mistaken, and some regional brackets. They've already been announced. So, Jeff, if you've got that information, where are a few of those teams seated at this year?
Well, we'll start with the host teams. Centralia will host Washington County and Lincoln. Clifton Clyde hosts Onega and Wakefield. Hanover will host Tescott and Peabody Burns. Both of those teams have to travel over 2 hours to get to Hanover. The Lynn Bulldogs will host Axtell, Chase, and Burton. Valley Heights host El Saline, Hillsboro, and Hutch Trinity. Of course, the Valley Heights games will be on the 22nd for the Mustangs. So looking forward to that on the second day. Elsewhere, Blue Valley and Frankfort are at Troy. Doniphan West goes to Lincoln. Yeah, I believe that's it.
I think that's it. I think you got them all covered there with it. You know, what stands out to me is a lot of area schools getting to host this year. I think that's kind of a compliment to the league, don't you feel like?
Oh, definitely. And it really is a nice way to, and I don't want to say acknowledge the TVL, but that they earned it.
Yeah.
They earned it this year. And with that many teams getting home spots, it's not only great for the league, pretty darn good for old Jeff, too.
Helps us media folk out, keeping us here at home. And I think another indication of this, I know we don't talk about it a lot, but I think when cities get looked at hosting for regionals or any activity, I'm sure Keisha has to look at the community and the support that these teams get. And, of course, without that support, these teams wouldn't be hosting near as well as they are this year.
You're correct. A lot of places are diehard. The fans, the businesses, a lot of them really support the schools. And, yeah, that's got to be one of the biggest factors as well.
And, of course, regionals will be next Monday and Tuesday. We will have a full recap of that regional action next Wednesday on the TVL Rundown. I'll put you on the spot next week, Jeff, to see who's going to be making a run at state. But we've got to move on to the cross-country side of the schedule. League cross-country is at Onega this Thursday, Jeff. Of course, getting together some of the best cross-country runners in the state at one place is always very exciting.
Definitely so, and we talk about this a lot. Cross country is a terrific sport for any athlete. I think as open as we said the volleyball league was, this thing is going to be wide open too, boys' side and girls' side. Several names coming up that could be really dangerous athletes on the course. You know, I'd go with the names Gavin Shaughnessy, obviously, Beb Zimmerman, a junior at Valley Heights. Just runs like the wind sometimes. Chris Fulkerson from Centralia. So many just terrific athletes on the cross-country course. And just really shows you the depth of all of the sports in the Twin Valley League.
And I know it's not a team mention, but I saw the rankings came out. I think Axtell Eagles boys were in a top 10 of class rankings. Centralia Panthers girls were in the top 10 of rankings too as well. And cross country, like we say, is so much more of an individual sport, and just the dedication that the individual athletes have to perform week in and week out, to me, amazes me each year.
I mean, you and I aren't going to go out and run 17 minutes, that's for sure.
Not anymore, and I don't wish that upon anyone at this point.
I wouldn't run 17 minutes consecutively I wouldn't run 17 minutes total in a day. You couldn't put 30-second intervals together where I would go 17 minutes.
It amazes me what they can do, and like we often said, a lot of these students are multi-sport athletes, some even in the fall too as well, and just amazing what they can see. Jeff, I know with that meet coming up, are you going to have results from the meet, and where can people find those results at?
I will have results of everything TVL, Max, everything that happens in the Twin Valley League. You will find that on the TVL Spotlight Facebook and Twitter, as well as tvlspotlight.blog. Not sure early next week what the schedule is going to be like for the podcast. Obviously, it's a lot going on, so just bear with me a little bit on the podcast schedule. But, yeah, as far as live updates, check out Facebook and Twitter at TVL Spotlight.
Shifting our attention down to the Friday night lights of the football field, Jeff, it is a big night of some matchups. We're going to start with the game that KNDY will have on FM 95.5. It is the top two teams in Class 8-man Division II, the Hanover Wildcats at the Axtell Eagles. I know you always get real jealous of me that I get to go to these great games, but just walk us through the importance of this game, what it's going to mean, and the two teams that'll be on the field Friday night.
You guys really had to stir over what game you were going to cover this week, I'm sure. It was probably a tough decision whether you were going to Axel Hanover or not. You're going to see some great football. That's all there is to it. It's the top teams in the state. They're going to grind it out. There's not been a bad game between these two in 6 to 7 to 8 years. There has not been a game that wasn't decided within 2 scores. This is going to be tremendous. This is going to be can't-miss football on Friday night, and you're definitely going to get your money's worth. If you can't get there, Candy Y is going to have great coverage. There's a guy that is in there in the booth there that he's starting to get pretty good at his job. So you'll be able to hear that, and yeah, it's going to be absolutely terrific. I can't wait.
And not only the history, but on the field, of course, Axel comes in with their winning streak, looking for 4 straight undefeated seasons. Hanover coming off, I've called him, talked to Matt Hoyer about him, maybe 2 down years in their opinion. But I think the history on the 8-man field, probably for the last 2 decades between the Hanover Wildcats and the Axel Eagles, the dominance they've had over the state, I think that, for me, is going to be the most exciting and exhilarating part of being able to be in that atmosphere there Friday evening versus Axtell and Hanover.
Definitely. When you look at the history of both of these teams, and then we can't forget what's on the field now, because both of these teams are championship caliber teams. They have athletes that are just 5-star athletes. I will go ahead and say it, 5-star athletes on both sides of the ball. Maybe some of them that don't get the recognition that they deserve. And, I mean, you're going to see at any given time 16 players that love the sport, care about their team and their school, and will not give up.
And you talk about the athletes that are going to be on the field. I think a few names we're going to be mentioning is always the Brandon Schmelsley, the Eli Brockstermans of the world. But I'm going to be looking at this Hanover defense led by Cameron Juneman up front that has pitched 4 shutouts this year. And in 8-man football, 4 shutouts is not an easy thing to necessarily do.
No, we talk about the offense so much. And, last week, both of these teams were just short of 70 points on offense, but they also pitched shutouts. And, that's just as incredible. I had someone the other night ask me how I thought both teams actually compared to Smith Center in the 90s. And for anyone listening to that, that's big, because Smith Center went on I believe a 90-some-odd game winning streak in the mid-90s. So when you're in that conversation, you've made it. And just getting that comparison is phenomenal.
And not to stray too far off of that game, but it's a big week in week 7 of the high school football season nonetheless. I think there were 2 other games, Jeff, that had some importance that we wanted to chat about real quick.
Well, you said you spoke to the Valley Heights coach, Cody Trimble. That game is going to be important. Valley Heights has some big opportunities on the line against a Republic County team that hasn't had the best year, but Valley Heights has a lot on the line as they travel to Republic County on Friday night. Give me a little bit. What did Cody talk to you about on that? How was his feelings there?
So I think it was pretty interesting comment that Cody Trimble made on his team. They played Harrington last week, won 54-8. They played Bennington 2 weeks ago, won 43-6, and he felt that his team didn't play good in either of those games. Now, granted, those 2 teams maybe not the upper echelon of the districts, but when he talked about this game against Republic County, the Buffaloes come in 3-3 on the season after no wins on last year, and he doesn't want his Mustangs team to overlook because, like you mentioned, there's a lot going into this game. If Valley Heights is able to win, that will be their first district championship since 2009. And you think of some of those good Mustang teams over the years, always kind of foreshadowed by Centralia, now finally out of that district looking to make their own mark this year.
Definitely. But one thing I do want to go back to, when you said that he wasn't happy with his team's play, that is coach speak, because no coach is ever happy with all 4 quarters that a team plays. They can't be. Mm-hmm. They have to find something. A coach is never going to walk off the field saying, that's the best game we're ever going to play. Let's just put it in easy drive now. Mm-hmm. And that's what Cody Trimble does. No offense to Cody Trimble, because I truly think he means that. That's what a coach's mentality has to be. Okay, let's take that next step. We were good tonight. Let's get great next week.
Absolutely, and I talked to him about one of his players too, the explosiveness. I don't know if you've heard or if our listeners have heard, but in the last 2 games, the Valley Heights running back Jaden DeWalt, over 350 yards combined and 8 touchdowns in 2 games. And I think this Mustang team, we talked about him a few weeks ago, but I think they can make some noise again in a playoff run this year.
Without a doubt. And it's not just Jaden. He is obviously the bell cow there, but so many great athletes on both sides of the ball. But the numbers that Jaden is putting up right now are just absolutely tremendous. Kind of a player that maybe you don't hear as much about, because 1A 11-man football is just loaded, but man, he can get it done. And I think he's totally okay. I think Valley Heights is totally okay with being that quiet team, Jaden being that quiet player, and they can go into the playoffs and really put it to a couple of these teams.
I think surprise some teams will be a term that will be used, and looking forward to what they can do. And another TVL foe for the Mustangs, the before-mentioned Centralia Panthers. They have a big district game this Friday against Troy. Now, a looming game next week versus Riverside to claim districts, but still the Panthers with an important game on a senior night this Friday.
Became just a little bit of a rivalry game when Troy was back in the TVL. But, yeah, I think this game's got everything that it needs to for a late-season ball game. And I think Centralia just has too many guns. I think Centralia just has too much athleticism for Troy to handle. I like this Panther team. I really do. All of the players that can contribute. And I think that's one of their biggest things. They have the Jimmies and Joes. They have the guys that can go out there and make a play at any given time.
I happened to see them firsthand in the first game of the season versus Valley Heights, and they looked impressive then, and they've only continued from now. And not to discourage some of the other games going on, but just want to quickly mention Frankfort will be at Wakefield after a big win over Blue Valley last Friday night. Washington County at Lakeside Downs looking for their first win of the season. And then a big game, too, as well, the Lynn Bulldogs at Osborne. Lynn, of course, 3-3 now, hosting their first playoff game when playoff starts for the first time since 1998. Jeff, I've got to ask you, because you're sitting right there in Lynn, Kansas, what's the excitement around this Bulldogs team like this time of year?
Absolutely huge. The rest of the town has really put their faith in this team. I think they make a long trip this week down to Osborne, but I think you're going to see a large crowd of Bulldogs on the sideline. And, the town is buzzing right now. Between the football team and the volleyball team doing well, sports are back in Lynn.
Sports are back around the TVL, and as we wrap up this week's edition of the TVL Rundown, Jeff, is there anything that we missed that we want to make sure we get in during this busy week?
Well, never put me on the spot again for who's going to win the TVL tournament in any sport. Let's just go with that. How about? No, I think we've covered everything. It's a busy week. It's going to be a ton of fun. I will have all the results from all of the volleyball last night. That is up on social media already and will be on tvlspotlight.blog later today. And then, Max, I think we got everything. It was an uphill climb.
It was, but we found the top of the mountain, didn't we?
I think so.
With another busy week in the TVL, we're going to close out this edition of the TVL Rundown for today. As always, you can find the full podcast at kndyradio.com as well as tvlspotlight.blog. For Jeff Wurtz of the TVL Spotlight, this has been Max Blaske. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll be back again next week. You've been tuned in to the TVL Rundown, a weekly comprehensive look at the athletics inside the Twin Valley League. The TVL Rundown is a service of B&D Buildings in Axtell and the Citizens National Bank in Greenleaf.